Hey guys, welcome back to Moyo, the cooking channel that's not so useless. In this video, we'll be frying up some sweet and sour pork. It's another beloved classic that's hard to say no to at a restaurant. Now, true to its name, this dish has a sweet element and a sour element. And for us, we like to supplement that sour factor with some dried hawthorn berries. But dried hawthorn berries are sometimes difficult to find, so we have to use the next best available option, and it's a fun little ingredient, hawthorn candy. They're small discs of candy that have a very slight sweetness and sourness to each individual piece, and give the sauce a hint of sour fruitiness to each bite. So to make this dish, you'll need to do 3 key things. Marinate the pork, make the sweet and sour sauce, and then fry and coat the pork in the sauce. And for the ingredients, you'll need pork neck, corn flour, chicken powder, light soy sauce, sesame oil, white vinegar, cooking wine, oyster sauce, tomato sauce, water, self-raising flour, Worcestershire sauce, white pepper, sugar, salt, pineapple, green and red capsicum, lime, red onion, ginger, egg, and hawthorn candy. For the quantities, you'll need to marinate 320 grams of pork neck with 1.5 teaspoons of light soy sauce, 1.5 teaspoons of oyster sauce, 1 teaspoon of cooking wine, 1.5 teaspoons of sugar, 1.5 teaspoon of corn flour, a sprinkle of white pepper, half an egg yolk, and 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. For the sauce, you'll need 2 teaspoons of chicken powder, 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, 10 grams of hawthorn candy, which is about 10 big pieces, 6 tablespoons of tomato sauce, 4 tablespoons of white vinegar, 3 teaspoons of corn flour, 10 tablespoons of water, 4 tablespoons of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, 4 teaspoons of lime juice, 35 grams of red onion, 35 grams of green capsicum, 35 grams of red capsicum, 70 grams of pineapple, and 2 to 4 slices of ginger. And lastly, for the batter, you'll need a 1/3 cup of corn flour for the dry, and another 1/3 cup for the wet, a 1/3 cup of self-raising flour, again for the dry, and another 1/3 cup for the wet, and 130 to 150 milliliters of water. But before we begin, if you do enjoy this video, do consider subscribing, as it does help the channel out. First off, as usual, give the pork neck a quick wash, before drying it really well with some paper towels. Next, we want to remove any membrane, as well as any fat that's tough to the touch, and this will ensure each bite is not chewy. However, if the fat doesn't feel tough, then feel free to leave it on. Next, portion the pork into bite-sized pieces. If the pieces are too small, you end up with dried out pieces whilst frying, and if they're too big, they won't cook evenly. And for us, we roughly cut them to about half the length of our thumb. After portioning, it's time to move on to marinating. So in a big bowl, add in all of the marinated ingredients except for the egg yolk and sesame oil. Then give it a good mix. After that, add in the egg yolk and give another mix. Then once that's done, repeat with the sesame oil to make the pork more fragrant. And once you're done mixing, wrap it up and put it in the fridge for at least 1 hour. You'll want to start working on the sauce immediately after you finish marinating, as the hawthorn candy can take a while to break down. First off, chop your onion into quarters and separate the layers. With the red capsicum, chop and de-seed. Then slice away. And do the same with the green capsicum. With the ginger, peel the skin and slice. With the lime, cut it in half and squeeze out the juice. Then with our pineapple, we're going to be using canned pineapples, and by all means use fresh pineapples if you have it. But just make sure you don't use canned pineapples in syrup, or else the sauce may be too sweet. And just like with the others, slice away. And after you've measured out the other ingredients, you're ready to continue. So in a pot, add in all of the ingredients except for the corn flour and the fruit and vegetables we just cut. Then turn the heat on low and stir until the sugar dissolves. When the sugar dissolves, leave the sauce aside and allow it to boil. When it starts to boil, give the sauce a good mix before allowing it to boil once more. And once it's boiling again, let the sauce cool down in a bowl. Now you'll notice that the hawthorn candy has not completely broken down yet, and that's fine. They'll slowly break down as the sauce cools. However, if you want to hasten this process, then we suggest that you soak the hawthorn candy in the 10 tablespoons of hot water, about half an hour before you begin making the sauce. Alternatively, you can just use a blender if you wish. Now the sauce is about 80% done, and we'll finish it off whilst frying the pork. We're going to make a batter to ensure the pork remains crispy for as long as possible. But before that, make sure your oil is at 180 degrees Celsius or 356 degrees Fahrenheit by the time you coat the pork in batter. So we want 2 bowls, both with a mixture of corn flour and self-raising flour. Next, in one of those bowls, add in the water and mix until you rid the batter of any lumps. You want to make sure the batter is quite thin, otherwise you will have a doughy crust. Then dredge the pork in the flour, making sure to coat the pork evenly. Afterwards, dust off any excess flour and coat evenly with the batter. Once evenly coated, immediately fry the pork for about 4 minutes. Now, if it takes time for you to transfer the pork from the batter to the oil, then be sure to periodically mix the pork around in the batter, as some of the flour in the batter can settle to the bottom. and if needed, be sure to help separate the pork from each other. 4 minutes later, you'll have these golden pieces of pork, so take them out and let them dry on some paper towels. Now of course, we're going to fry these up twice, but before that, let's finish off the sauce. So with the sweet and sour sauce, add in the corn flour and evenly mix it through. Once mixed, turn the heat on high, add in some oil, and add in the ginger. Then when the oil gets hot, add in the sweet and sour sauce, as well as the remaining ingredients. And stir the sauce around until it starts to thicken and boil. And in the meantime, make sure your oil is heating back up to 180 degrees Celsius. Once done, your sauce should look something like this. Now immediately back to the oil. Add the pork in for a second time and let it fry for around a minute. After a minute, take the pork out and quickly toss it around in the sauce. And when nicely coated, plate it up and immediately dig in before the sauce makes the pork too soggy. Now that being said, even after roughly 15 minutes since plating, the batter still retained a slight crunch to it. Although I would have preferred eating it right away, but you know, filming and whatnot. So guys, that was my family's recipe for sweet and sour pork. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you ever get the chance to make this at home, be sure to tell us how it goes. And if you want to see any of our future videos, be sure to subscribe. See ya.